Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I am super excited for the guest that I have on today. He has become a good friend of mine. I like to call my social media friends, but he has become a really good friend of mine through social media over the last, probably year and a half now. He and I have gotten a chance to know each other a little bit. I'm super excited that he has agreed to come on. He's super busy running his own company, has a brand new baby, and we'll get into all that. But Johnny Orenberg, thank you very much for joining me, brother.
Hey Brian, really thanks for having me. Yeah, actually it's been almost 2 years,
Yeah.
believe it or not, but through the pandemic. So yeah.
Yeah. So cool. I love, that's one of the things that I love most about, social media, the social media, Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. It's not so much about the posts that I make, it's more about the connections that I make. And I've met a lot of cool people and made a lot of good friends through that facility, I guess you could call it. And you being one of them. You and I have become pretty close for the last almost 2 years now, and gotten a chance to know each other. So I'm really thankful that you decided to take the time to come on the show. I know it's been a long time coming, but finally glad to have you here.
Well, it's interesting talking about that social media piece. You know, I was not a social media person. I was very skeptical of it. And then the pandemic happened, and I think everybody that wasn't a troll ended up being on social media. And so when you started to connect, posting on my page through other sources, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was like, well, why is this guy posting on I didn't know who you were. And we still haven't met in person, which
Right.
is interesting, right? So, but I think that was a big kind of aha moment for me during the pandemic. I just said, you know what? There are good people out there that want to connect, and are trying to figure this out. And I think first of all, you took the chance, was reaching out, and that taught me a lot about a lot of different things. Just what's the worst thing that can happen? Nothing. You know what I mean? They say no, or so thank you for reaching out. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's like I said, it's all about the network. And when you're trying to grow a brand, or for you, for instance, you're trying to grow a brand new company, it's all about trying to connect with people to at least make yourself known, get yourself out there a little bit. Because especially during the pandemic, we can't really do it in person, right? So we're doing it through
mhm.
social media avenues or things like this, Zoom or whatever. So yeah, like I said, I've met a lot of cool people, and it's just a matter of just putting yourself out there and reaching out to people. So I'm glad that you and I have connected. So let me do
Yes,
this for my listeners who may not know who you are.
sure.
Let's dive into a back history of you, because you have a really cool story. You have a really cool. You're very talented. Obviously, we'll get into all that, but you're very talented. But I just
Thank
want to
you.
know. I want them to know a little bit more about Johnny.
Yeah, so I grew up here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and from the time I can remember, I wanted to be a famous actor. That was 5 years old, 6 years old. That's what I wanted to do, and my parents were smart. They said, "No, you're going to be a kid." So I played sports. I played a lot of football, baseball, but I just wanted to. I always had this in my mind. My mom always said, "You're going to be great. You're going to be great." And in third grade, I actually was diagnosed. I came home and from school, and I went to my mom and said, "Hey, listen, I'm one of the smartest kids in the class, but I can't read." And we got diagnosed. I got diagnosed with dyslexia, and through that channel, my gift, didn't feel like a gift at the time, but I was able to use my dyslexia, later ADHD, later general anxiety disorder, all these things, and use them to channel through acting and singing. And so I just basically middle school started to sing because that's where the girls were. I went to I went to choir to hey, there was me and all these girls, so let's serenade some girls, right? So I did that, and but then my teacher said, "Hey, you can actually sing." And I really took that, to heart, and started to get, singing lessons and that type of thing. Did all the every theater possible I could think of. I did it. Community theater, tried to do some professional theater in high school. And then I got into Baldwin Wallace Conservatory of Music in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh,
And at the
wow.
time, yeah, and at the time, this was 2002. At the time, it was a very small class, so I was like only one of 10 that got into this program. And so it was a really intensive, so I was classically trained in voice. That was my primary instrument, and secondary instrument was piano. And I got my bachelor's of music degree in musical theater. And we were trained like you being a Marine. Well, this was like the boot camp for musical theater. We would have New York people come in every weekend for workshops to really grill us, to, so we knew our craft, and that was the whole point. So then I went off to New York. I booked my very first job right out of college, and I thought, man, this is going to be real easy. I don't know what everyone's talking about. And I really worked steadily. My first job was a political satire. I do impressions and that kind of thing. So that was a lot of fun. Went around the country doing that. And then I started to work for the Disney Cruise Line. Boy, that was an experience. And I have made incredible friends that will last a lifetime with that. And then I said I'd never work for the mouse again. And what did I do? I went to Orlando and worked for Walt Disney World. So doing several of the shows there. And then in 2009, I moved back up to New York, and all this time going back and forth to New York. And I was very fortunate. I did a lot of workshop of new musicals, and the workshopping in new musicals, like Hamilton took like 10 years to be developed. And workshopping is a process that you kind of, actors and writers, and they go and put out their work to try to get produced, and by producers. Well, anyway, I did a lot of these, and I did a lot of them with really big stars, and I was like, this is where I want to be. I want to be here all the time. And but then I was talking to one of the cast members during that one of those workshops, and the guy looked at me and said, hey, how did you get this job? And I said, well, I auditioned because I know the music director. And then he says, well, dude, I've been waiting 10 years to do something like this. And it hit me. And I was 28 at the time. And it just hit me. I said, I don't want to be 50 years old waiting for my break. I don't want to be, like, it just kind of hit me. And like I said, I was dealing with some other personal issues at the time. So I left New York in 2012, and I came back home here to California. And I started working for a little community bank out here. And people were like, why banking? And I was like, well, it's just a different song and dance. I have to sell myself. But again, I didn't want to be 30 starting over. There was something in my head that was like, I had very little money. I was living at home, those kind of things. And then I reconnected with a really good friend of mine from high school, middle school, high school, who happens to be my wife today. And she, looking back on everything, she was that piece that when we first met, Bryan, way back when, I insulted her in high school. Okay. She never talked to me again. But then when I reconnected with her in 2012, she was working at a winery at the time. And she's very, very bright, beautiful. She has this kind of effervescence about her, presence. And I actually went to a release party. I crashed a release party, and she was so nice and gracious. She invited me around to all of her friends, and she said, hi, this is my friend, Johnny Orenberg. He can do anything. And I looked at her, and And I said, what are you talking about? You don't know me. I haven't talked with you, off and on for like 10 years, but yeah, you don't know me. And she says, I know exactly who you are. And, and I didn't see it, but my wife saw it then. And I've had to come through this journey to find, and I've changed, but I've had to find through this crazy journey because I thought I wanted to be somebody in the entertainment world, but in reality, I was myself because other people have seen who I am, and that's really hard for me especially now as a father, trying to figure out who I am. And because you have a perception with your children now,
Mhm.
it's a totally different, it's kind of mind blowing, right? And there's still that little piece of me that wants to be famous, rich and famous, but I know that that's not who I am, you know.
Mm. Okay, so now how you have a child. Let's talk about your child.
Right, right. So we have a year-and-a-half-year-old boy, uh and he's a great combination of both of us. Looking at yourself now, you're like, oh yeah, he's really charming, and my wife is too, but she has a kind of a personality where, hey, oh, you're getting a little too close. Well, that's how he is. Like he'll bring you in, and then he'll be like, no, 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 no. So it's really sweet. But being a dad and running a business, and you have to like, I didn't think that I would have to sacrifice so much. I think that you think, oh well, I'll be able to do things here and there, but you're exhausted. Like it's like you just want to sleep. If you want to get something done that takes 30 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes or whatever, you feel like you really have to pace yourself. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that big time. It's okay not to get something done with your business like right away. I mean, yes, the pressing stuff, yeah, you have to get done, but if it's a long-term project and you didn't get the one thing that you were supposed to get done, like a video or this or that, it's not the end of the world, and you could do it tomorrow.
Mhm.
And I think that's taught me a lot. But having a kid, it brings, I don't know, for me, it brings the my parents are always around. That's been really because they just live about 20 minutes away. So we've been very, very blessed to have those grandparents around.
Mhm.
And so, um, but yeah, it's just interesting to see him grow. He's very smart. I mean, this kid is a year-and-a-half-year old, and he's already, you go A, B, C, D, E, F, and he'll say the letter when you stop. I mean, it's just, and the screen time, we've talked about this before. He started to throw little tantrums when Elmo's not on. And you're like, okay, well, and then you get him distracted on something else, and he's fine. But now I'm starting to go, oh yeah, like I didn't grow up like that. I didn't grow up with a screen in my
Right.
face. So
Right.
so going back to those, that you thought your parents were crazy, but they weren't. Starting to have those perspectives is really pretty neat.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I can't believe he's a year and a half already. Holy cow.
Yeah, year-and-a-half-year old, and he's just long. He's just like, he'll say no, no's, no. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's very expressive, which is great, but a year and a half already. So
Yeah, because you and I, yeah. So you're right. It's been like 2 years because I knew you before you had your boy. So,
correct, right?
uh, well, cool. All right. So I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean,
Yeah,
you had this vision, you had this goal, you had this dream as a child to hopefully get into acting and all that. And it didn't pan out. That's not something that you actually went into, but on the flip side, you still have this. I know how talented you are, especially on the singing side. I know how talented you are. Um, is there still a passion to kind of do it a little bit to kind of
yeah.
keep
Oh
going with
yeah.
it?
Oh, absolutely. I think um, I'm working with actually another person that I met through the pandemic, an incredible acting coach. He's called the Coach MC. He's actually out of Germany, and we connected. He's Italian in Germany, which is kind of an oxymoron, but he you know, I started working with him about 10 or 11 weeks ago through Jeff Lopes, another great guy that we know.
Another good
He,
friend of mine.
another good friend of mine. He said, "Hey, I think you should check this guy out." So we connected, and the very first session that I had with him, I thought I was going, because I have also a little acting business on the side too, coaching business, and so I thought I was going to him for that, and he flipped it on around to me and said, "No, no, Johnny, you're not dead yet, and now you're receiving the information." Because here, I'll scratch that. I'll say, so he said to me, he said, I said, "Man, I just wish I would have had this information prior to, like, when I was in New York or whatever." And he
Mm.
said, "Johnny, you weren't ready to receive that information." And on acting or whatever. So to your question, yeah, no, I have a one-man show. I'm still acting. I'm still performing. I still do it on the side. It's just not my main focus. And it is a passion. It will continue to be a passion. And it's like golf. You can do it until you run out. Really, if you take care of yourself, you're going to be able to play it till you're 100. You know what I mean? So I think so. Yes, that will continue. It will be a part of me. That doesn't go away. It's just in a different. It's just in a different way now. You know.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And I was thinking about something when you were talking there about kind of the direction that your life took, and the things that you're getting into now. And I think about, had you not moved from back east back home, you probably wouldn't be with the wife that you have today. You probably wouldn't have the son that you have today. So I say that in saying that, God works in funny ways. He has direction, he has plans for our lives before we even realize it. And we may not completely understand it, but eventually we come around to go, okay, this is okay. Now I understand. I moved back here. This is who I was supposed to be with. This is the son we were supposed to have. Okay, great. Now what's the next direction I'm going to go? And for you, that next direction right now has been this business that you started. I know you're in the healthcare industry, but I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I think it's important. You're starting this business off. It's very tough, especially at your age. You're a little older. You got a younger son, and you're taking a big risk in starting a new company. I think kudos to you, but let's talk about it a little bit.
Sure. So during the pandemic, well, right before the pandemic, this is kind of I wasn't very happy in the banking business. Sorry, Brian. I know that's your business. I wasn't very happy. It wasn't my thing. So, but I lasted about 5 to 6 years in it. And my wife and I was looking for a change. I was totally looking for something that was me, and I looked for several years, but then fortunately, unfortunately and fortunately, my grandmother-in-law, my wife's grandmother, had a stroke, no fault of her own, 89 years old, and she was in intensive rehab, and the family was like, "Well, what are we going to do? Who's going to take care of her?" And I said, "Well, you know what? I was looking into going to help seniors anyway." And I said, I will gladly do it. And so I started taking care of her just as a family member. So as this kind of developed, as I started taking care of her during the pandemic, I said to myself, when the pandemic hit, I said, I didn't want to be in the same spot as I was after all this was over. I just made that a goal. And because I just had a feeling people were going to stay at home, shelter in place, drink, do whatever. And they were going to it was going to take, like, there was going to be a lag time. And I just said, I have to use this as a jumping off point. And so that's when I went online, started connecting with you, and you actually are the connection for how I started my business, which is really interesting. With your connection and going on Clubhouse and meeting the people that I met, that's how Care Life Services came out of the pandemic. But it came out of a family need. originally, right? And that was what was so great about this. So it's a non-medical in-home care business, and it's just me. I do everything. I'm licensed with the state. But during the pandemic, I also got my CNA, my certified nurse's assistant training, and senior fitness specialist training. And so, I'm just going to take that, and I'm just going to continue my education with that. I'll probably, I'm thinking about becoming an LVN or an RN. So, which will only bolster my business as well. But that was the kickstart. And actually I have 4 or 5 clients, and I make my own schedule. I'm really making connections with these other families and they're all referrals from family, which is interesting. Oh, Johnny's this, Johnny, I'm creating the bottom level of this business now, but it's a passion. It's still a passion because I always wanted to help people. And actually, to be perfectly honest with you, when I was, 4 or 5 years old, wanting to be rich and famous, I saw them helping people. Like the platform is what I wanted to help, because if you can help, but if you can help just one person, that's all that really matters, because it's a ripple effect, because you help me and then other people are helped with that ripple. So, yeah, is it a challenge with a baby? Sure. Like I was telling you earlier, my wife, she's a teacher, and she was just going back to getting her master's in Georgetown for a month period. Well, I was a single parent. Granted, I had some help, but it was just me, so and I was still having to take care of other people too, and taking care of my son, taking care of my clients, and having to take care of myself. And that's the hard part. You have to take care of yourself first, especially if you're a caregiver. We'll get run down. But yeah, that's how it started. So.
Well, that's cool. Well, since I helped you start the business,
you want a little royalty?
A little royalty going on here.
Well, what's 0% of nothing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I think it's really cool. I mean, you're all about helping others, whether it's through your singing or acting, and providing the entertainment to others, or through this kind of work. It's remarkable. So. I hope you have continued success and growth in the business. I know it's a struggle to begin with, but if you hang in there and keep pushing at it and keep working at it, keep trying to get more referrals and all that kind of stuff, good things will happen for you. So that's awesome to see. Now your son, you've got, a 1.5-year-old, and he's probably running all over the house, causing trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. We got the baby gates up already in a very small apartment. So yeah.
As far as challenges, I guess obviously the biggest challenge being your business. Your wife's, she's on her summer break right now, so she's a little bit more flexible as far as being home. But what kind of challenges are you guys facing right now with a 1.5-year-old? It's been a long time for me. I got a 23-year-old and a 20-year-old. So.
Well, that's a whole nother, I'm sure that's a whole nother challenge, so a whole nother set of challenges. But yeah, well, I think the big thing here is getting enough time with each other, as we go, we're still individuals and we still like to do our own things too, but we also are a couple, and spending that time one-on-one, especially with her absence for a month, getting back into a routine, that's been, we look at our child and we go, hey, we love you. Yeah, he's running everywhere. He really is. We did get the jackpot as far as him running around and him causing, we haven't really hit that, 2 to 3, tantrums yet. We haven't had that yet. But yeah, I think that the connection between the two of us is really important. So we've tried to set date nights, and sometimes it doesn't, it does work. It doesn't work. We have to be kind of flexible right now, I think. But we are planning a little getaway for, the first overnight, which is good. And I think that will, like you suggested, we've talked about this, just going to a coffee shop, and saying we've done that and for 30 minutes to an hour. It's fantastic. Or we'll go to a movie, just chill out, just the two of us. But I like that connection. I'm that's kind of my love language. I need that love and connection with someone. And so, we, and taking that time, not only for dates but intimate time, like it's you're exhausted and you look over and you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's that's also important too. And I think that's something you just forget. And so we've really tried to be intentional about that,
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, you and I have had conversations about the date night things, and especially about trying to do a date night where it's cost efficient, where you can kind of
right.
Not spend a whole lot of money, but still have a good time. And for my wife and I, we're really big on going on walks, going on hikes. We'll drive to like up in our area, up to Big Bear or something, and we'll just find just a random trail in the mountains and just go for a hike. It doesn't cost anything but fuel in the car. That's it. And we have a really great time. Things like that. During the pandemic, especially, we used to just drive up and down the beach. Like we would spend 4 hours in a car and we wouldn't go more than 40, 50 miles. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we would drive these long roads up and down the beach, and we would just talk and windows down, nice day out, windows down, and just talk and just cruise. And it didn't cost us anything but fuel. But obviously, those times are important, especially when you have a young child. When my boys, as my boys are older, so it's a little bit easier for us to kind of make that time together. But when you have a young child or have multiple children that are younger age, it's important that those times are scheduled, just like your business. You have clients that make appointments with you, and they're scheduled appointments. You don't just keep them on the top of your head. You write them down or put them in your phone. You have to make this time. You have to put the time down as a schedule for your time with your wife.
And also, I think it's the pyramid. I call it the pyramid scheme, which is it's interesting. I don't know if this is like this for you, but we really look at that. I look at the mass, right? We always look at the problem, but really, the most important thing is at the top. And I think for me, and a lot of couples, especially who have little ones, they what can I get done? What can I get done that's easy? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm looking at. I'm going, what can I pick off that's easy to do for, him or what? But really, it's like, wait a minute, no, you're forgetting, like, how did he get here? Like, he got here because of you made the priority for your relationship. You made the priority for your marriage. You made it a priority, and as other things kind of creep in, you do have to have a priority system, and that's really, that for me, that's been difficult, because you want to do everything for everybody else, but really in reality, you have to do it for yourself. And like you said, connection is everything. And yes, there's no accidents. There's definitely no accidents. So.
Right. I mean, it is, it's a really important part of parenting, believe it or not. If I have a lot of single parents that follow the show, but the ones that are, married and together, parenting is being a couple and being a happy couple and doing the things right together is a very important part in parenting and being a successful parent.
I don't know how first of all, I was a single parent for a month. And I don't know how especially with no support, with, no funding, I really, you probably feel completely lost, but, just know, I think, like, podcasts like this, just knowing that there are other people out there struggling with the same thing is just, because I listen to you all the time when you have a new episode out or past episodes to go back, because it's so important, the information you're putting out there. And thank you so much for making that space, because there isn't. Nobody wants to talk about parenting. No one wants to talk about, but really there is so much there, because it does, as a parent, like we were talking about, it changes you. And it's for the better if you want it to be. We all make choices, but parenting changes you in so many ways that, I thought marriage did. I thought marriage was, but this is a whole nother ball game, you know.
Well, I want to talk about that. So going let's say maybe pre-marriage, but pre-kid for sure, Johnny, and then post-kid or post-child, Johnny. What are the differences between you before you had a kid and now that you have a son?
Oh man. You know, as I think it's just kind of part of how we're made, you know, in our, especially society, young men, what are they? They're playboys. You know, you're allowed to kind of go out, date a lot, you know, it's kind of just the thing to do. Uh and that was kind of the thing I did. Date a lot of girls, have a lot of relationships, those kind of things, right? And as when I just when I can't, I don't, with marriage, when you know it's the right girl or the right person, you just know. And so things changed. That was already a change. And then once you start to figure out who this other person is, living with that person, that's a whole nother ball game. You actually have to be flexible. I mean, for me, I was very rigid. I wanted to be famous. I wanted to do this. I wanted my own schedule. Same with my wife. I wanted this. She had her, you know, she would only make time for certain people because she had to do this, right? Well, now we're just, it's like we're in the waves. We're just kind of part of the current. And I think, you know, I'm not a tree standing there anymore. I'm more with the current. And and then the baby comes along and you're looking at what you made, and it's just it's another, like I said, it's another dimension. And where then you say, all right, all my decisions, everything that I'm doing, you're going to watch, you're going to see how you come off. You know, I'm pretty brash, I'm pretty open with my feelings, you know, and I've had to learn how to curb that. I've had to learn, hey, you can't swear, you can't do those things, you can't, you know, they're going to watch you. And even now he picks up everything that I do now, and he's a year and a half old. And so I think, you know, to answer your question, yeah, I've had to change because it's a necessity.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
So, okay. So now I want to talk about when you had your son, let's say the first couple months there of you having your son, to now, year and a half. What kind of changes have you made as a parent or had to make as a parent going, you know what, that's not working. I've got to kind of evolve and adapt to this.
So I think, you know, when they're little, you know, when they're like 1 or 2, you could still get stuff done because they don't do a whole lot. They just, you know, they cry, you feed them, you know, and we had a lot more flexibility for yourself. I could get a lot done. Now it's his show, you know, like I just happen, I literally, now we have an ensemble. If we're going theater now, right? I'm not out there in front, down center. I literally have to take a back seat, and he's on stage now, and I have to help him, you know, be part of the ensemble. It's his show now. So I think that taking a step back, but see, in your brain, I'm running a business. I'm an owner. I'm the father. I'm this. You have all these things running in your head, but in reality, you have to take that step back. And I think that's been the hardest transition for me. And that's been the biggest thing that, to answer your question, that has been the biggest kind of fix or thing that that we both had
right.
to do, is going, oh no, it's all about him. I think it's easier for women because I think they have the nurture nature,
Yeah.
you know, kind of side of them. So yes, it because my wife is all about my son, and she was the total opposite. You know, I didn't think that she would be so a boy's mom. She always wanted a girl, and now she's a boy's mom, right? So, you know, for me as the dad's like, you know, we're going out there, we're supposed to be strong, all these things, these stereotypical things. And in reality, I've just I've done the opposite. I've actually, you have to become softer, I think. And so
Until he's a little older.
Until he's a little, right. Well, right. Correct. But I mean, I think, because growing up, it's interesting. My father, his approach, because his father never told him that he loved him ever.
Right.
And my father says, I love you, but there's nothing behind it. And I think this generation, I actually look at my son and I say, I love you. And it means something.
Right.
And so I think, I think that also is going to be, we're not going to know until he grows up, like you said. So
no, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that kind of leads into my, my last question. But just kind of going back to, I think you're right. When we're brand new dads and we have a young child, we have to kind of be a little bit softer. I mean, not a whole lot, but because they are younger and they're babies, I mean, we've got to kind of nurture them a little, be that nurturer a little bit more. But as they get older, we can kind of enjoy all the things that we normally like to do, like roughhousing and things like that. I've had moments where my two sons and I have boxed, and being able to, throw punches with each other in fun, in not in an aggressive or mean way, obviously, in fun and enjoying that. So I've had those moments with my boys. So that kind of stuff you get to look forward to when he's a little bit older. But kind of going back to what you said about your father, I had a very similar experience with my own dad. My father's father wasn't around. He wasn't in the picture. My dad really didn't have a good relationship, or really didn't wasn't connected with him at all. Then my dad and I still have a connection to this day. He's been on my show. He and I have still had a connection to this day. The one thing that he did give me is that he used to tell me that every single day that he loved me. Some days I could tell that it was just a, habit kind of thing. But there were times where there was, this meaning behind it, or this sense of love behind it. For you, talking about your dad and your grandfather, what have you taken from your parents into parenting? Or like, hey, I see that this is how I was raised. I'm starting to show these signs towards my son. Or, hey, I shouldn't be this way. This is how I was raised, and I'm not going to be this parent. What kind of things have you taken from your own parents that have led you to who you are?
Well, I'm gonna have to go back to my therapist for this question, but no, seriously, I've taken the golden rule, big. The first, we were always taught, treat others the way you want to be treated. That's always sticks in my mind. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And also, saying that I love you regardless of where where your relationship is at, whether you hate him or not. I think I have a younger brother, and we used to fight all the time. We're 4.5, 5 years apart. So I think those are the things that, and also family is everything. They, no matter, my mother was just back east with me. We reconnected. She was flying from, her family lives in West Virginia, and when I was in Virginia, she came up, and so she came back home. She's had her own struggles with things, and so she always taught me. She said, you know what? No matter what you're going through, no matter what our family is going through, I'd rather take what our family is going through over anybody's other stuff. And I think that also, family comes first, and you can't beat that honesty, open, honest. Because I told my parents everything. They said, use me as an excuse. I remember that always. If you don't want to do something, use us as an excuse. And I think going forward, I will totally use that with with my son and future children if we have any.
That's awesome. Very cool. I want to ask you one more question, and give me in a few sentences, one or two, maybe three or four, whatever. If you had to give some advice to a parent, or a soon-to-be parent, a new parent, or soon-to-be new parent, what advice would you give as, kind of this new dad kind of coming into 2 years now?
You can only plan so much and be in the moment as much as you can. Because if you're not, these things will go by so quickly and you won't even remember them. But it's kind of like when I was first married, somebody told me it's about the two of you. The marriage is about the two of you. That day, it's about the two of you. It's not about everybody else. So I think, be present. It's about whomever you're with, and it's about family. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I mean, it's important as parents, husband and wife, to make sure that you guys are making each other a priority, so that way you can be the parents that you want to be and need to be for your children or child. So I agree. Being present, that's never going to change, whether they're 8 months or 28. That's never going to change. So,
and it sure is hard, but it changes you too as a person. And I think, being present, which we all want, right? We all have one foot in the past, one foot in the present. Or in the past, we're never really present, but being present is everything, really.
Yeah. And it changes you in a good way. Let me add that.
Yes.
Well, listen, Johnny, I appreciate our friendship, brother. I appreciate who you are. I appreciate the fact that you are a dad that is trying to be the best dad possible for his son and possibly future children. But I just want to commend you for the work that you're doing. I wish you all the best success in the world for not only your business, but also, singing, acting, whatever it is that you're doing as far as the coaching side, and also your wife as well. But thank you very much for joining me on Dad Up today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Bryan. All the best. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, this has been another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you again to my good friend Johnny for being on the show. You can obviously check out his social media that he has. He has a website and all that. And he has a phenomenal resume about the stuff that he's done throughout his career. But so I'll put those all in the show notes. But thank you very much. And thank you, Johnny, for being on the show. Thank you guys very much for joining me on another episode of Dad Up. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks so much for listening to the episode. Make sure you guys subscribe to my podcast and YouTube channel. And please do me a favor, leave a rating and a review. Would love to hear from you and see what you think of the show. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes each week. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Dad Up Podcast.